After the shocking ending of Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2, so many questions are being asked as we eagerly await the final part. We may have some answers, but for now, this is left up to speculation. This is what will happen in Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 3. It goes without saying that there are spoilers ahead, so proceed with caution. First, let's talk about the fallout of the Sekai Taikai brawl. The main question here is, who is to blame? If we're going by the classic quote, "no such thing as a bad student," then we have to look to the senseis. As we know, Kwan's passing was an accident and Axel was simply defending himself as he blocked a kick from Kwan, which resulted in Kwan falling on the Ungjong-do. Now, some thoughts may go to that if the Ungjong-do hadn't been in the locker, as we know either Chozen, Johnny, or Daniel moved it and blamed it on Terry as part of their plan, none of this would have happened in the brawl. But if we are to look at the person who brought it to the tournament in the first place, the blame solely falls on the shoulders of Kreese, who even closed his eyes with regret when he realized what happened. Now, Mike Barnes did say in Underdogs that there were horror stories and people have died, so Miyagi-Do knew that there was some risk of getting seriously injured. However, when Gunther confirmed the legitimate records of Miyagi's opponent dying in the match, he stated that deaths rarely happened and it was a different time, indicating that this is something that does not happen in modern Sekai Taikais. Sensei Ivanov also shares responsibility for this because had he not started the brawl by knocking out Gunther, Kwan may have still been alive today. There are going to be consequences for everything that went down, which will reflect the end of Part 2 and the beginning of Part 3, where the senseis will have to come to terms if what they're teaching is really worth getting their students hurt and involved in dojo wars. The next storyline to talk about, what happens to Kreese? There have been very few times where he showed regret in the show. The expression on John's face after seeing Kwan says it all. We can also see the confusion on his face when he hears Kwan scream, so I can only imagine that the next part of the season will explore how Kreese deals with the death of one of his students. Now typically for the most part, the families of students aren't present in karate affairs outside of the LaRussos, Diaz's, and Johnny. But I wonder if that will come into play, especially if the sensei who isn't native to South Korea was partly responsible for this tragedy. I don't know if Kreese would mourn Kwan as he didn't have the same connection with him as he did with Johnny and Tori, but I think he would still have some regrets. However, given how focused he was on winning the Sekai Taikai, we could simply see him brush this off and relate it to a military situation, saying something like, "This is war and there will be casualties." Another factor we have to consider would be how Master Kim Sung-young would feel about all of this. Given how he already considered both Silver, at least indirectly, and Kim Da-eun failures, he likely may feel the same about Kreese, and if the way of the fist focused on rage and anger is to blame, there may be some repercussions for the dojon. This is something I also noticed during the ending of the brawl itself. Where is Sensei Wolf? The last time we saw him, he was about to deliver a punch to Daniel until he was knocked away by two senseis fighting. I looked at all the footage after that happened, and he is strangely absent. Given that his student was involved in a fight resulting in the death of a competitor, he may be also questioned for what happened. In Axel's defense, no pun intended, he was fighting to defend both Sam and Robbie, so I'm not sure if he would be at fault for anything. Axel might also come clean about how Kwan and Cobra Kai tried to start a fight with them where he and Sam had to defend themselves outside of the tournament, which would also help his case. Also, given that Terry Silver is the benefactor of the Iron Dragons, he may get pulled into the mix of this. But in his defense, he did try to stay out of the fight, but Sensei Wolf didn't. Will the tournament continue? It's hard to say, but it's going to be 50-50. For example, we saw Miyagi's match on the list, but we don't know if it was the last match of the tournament, if it was in the middle, or the first match in the tournament. Again, as both Gunther and Mike Barnes said, people have died and there have been tournaments since then. However, we also know that those tournaments were also in a different time, and if a tragedy like that hasn't occurred in a very long time, this may be something new that Gunther and his team will have to handle. I could see it being very controversial and backlash if the tournament continues from those watching in the Miyagi-verse, let alone the live feed capturing the brawl and Kwan's death in real time. I don't know if they would just then stop the tournament altogether, but they may postpone it. If that's the case, we could get a time skip and perhaps the tournament is then resumed with its current standing. But then another question comes into play. Who becomes the new male team captain of Cobra Kai? Or would Cobra Kai not continue and back out of the tournament altogether? One thing that's interesting to note is that in Cobra Kai Inside the Dojo Part 2, we see a preview of Robbie vs. Axel again, but it's not at the Sekai Taikai, it's at the All Valley Arena. We also see the flags for Cobra Kai, Furia de Pantera, tiger strike, and I believe the Sekai Taikai logo is in the background as well. Also, Robbie is landing a strike on Axel for the first time. It's hard to tell where this plotline is going, but it's going to be interesting nonetheless. Also, Josh Heald in a Collider interview before Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 2 was released said that the tournament would end in Part 2. So at this point, it's all speculation. What happens after the tournament for Miyagi-Do? As they stated in Blood In, Blood Out, that was going to be the last time they fought together as a team. Obviously, Kenny and Anthony are just starting high school, so they still have that ahead of them. We know Dimitri is going to MIT, Hawk may explore some schools, and Miguel's trying to get into Stanford. I'd like to see what happens for Tori, Sam, Robbie, and Devin figuring out their futures. Maybe Robbie will help Daniel and or Johnny teach, and Tori will join him in that endeavor, as she still sees Miyagi-Do as her friends. I'm not sure if Daniel will continue to teach, which I'll expand upon in the next section, but Johnny has found his purpose as a sensei and is going to continue that in my opinion. Here's another storyline I think will happen: Amanda's protest of Miyagi-Do being open. Now, Amanda has tried to keep Daniel grounded several times throughout the series on what Daniel should and shouldn't do with Miyagi-Do. She was very vocal about what happened after the school fight and also Daniel's repeated efforts to go after Cobra Kai when Kreese and Silver both ran it. Although he promised they wouldn't get hurt in Season 5, the fact that the kids were there at the tragedy itself and the risk of that happening to them could cause her to put her foot down and demand that there should be no more karate after the tournament. While this might be a reach, it's worth speculating. Could Kumiko contact Chozen in Cobra Kai Season 6 Part 3, putting Chozen into a love triangle? Some of my viewers speculate that the way the cutaway happened, the guy at Kumiko's house was just a friend and not someone romantically interested in Kumiko, and Chozen just misunderstood. I could see this almost playing out like the end of Season 3 where Johnny and Ali meet up, but the former realizes he loves Carmen. Chozen also mentioned what happens in Barcelona stays in Barcelona, similar to Daniel and Amanda talking about Cancun in the episode Sleeper. If this is the case, then Chozen will have to make a decision. Lastly, here's some other speculation going into the final part of Season 6. There's notably a season where Amanda, Daniel, Chozen, and someone with long blonde hair sitting at a table outside, almost like at a country club or ranch of sorts. My guess is this is Ali Mills, who I'm most likely leaning toward, or Julie Pierce, who is yet to make an appearance but is canon to the Miyagi-verse. The nature of the scene is unclear, but my guess is that it may have something to do with either the tournament or Mr. Miyagi. Speaking of, John Hurwitz hints that Daniel will also find more answers about Mr. Miyagi, which notably cuts to Daniel fighting people dressed as skeletons at the Miyagi-Do dojo. This could be either a dream sequence or something that takes place near the end of the season, but this is one of the more intriguing parts of Inside the Dojo Part 2. It's also worth noting that in the early hours of Season 6 Part 2's release, the initial release date was February 13th, but this later got retracted. So now it makes you wonder if the date moved for some reason. All of that aside, given how Season 6 Part 2 ended, I'm eagerly awaiting for the final part of the final season of Cobra Kai. Not to mention, we also have Karate Kid Legends to look forward to as well in 2025. The year cannot get here fast enough. In the meantime, check out my Season 6 Part 2 Easter eggs and references breakdown. What are some Easter eggs that you found in Part 2, and what are you looking forward to in Part 3?